Long ago, deep inside a vast green forest, where tall trees touched the sky and the wind whispered through the leaves, there lived a fox. His name was Felix. Felix was not just any fox. He was known throughout the forest as the clever fox. At least, that's what he liked to call himself. Felix had bright orange fur that shone like fire under the sunlight, a long bushy tail, and sharp clever eyes that always seemed to sparkle with confidence. But there was one thing about Felix that most animals noticed very quickly. He loved to boast. Wherever he went, he talked about his cleverness. Whenever he met another animal, he would proudly say things like, "I am the smartest animal in this forest. I know hundreds of tricks. No danger can ever catch me." Some animals simply smiled and walked away. Some animals laughed quietly behind his back. But Felix never noticed. He believed every word he said. One warm afternoon, Felix was strolling through the forest proudly, humming a cheerful tune. The birds chirped above him, butterflies danced through the air, and the forest looked peaceful and calm. Suddenly, Felix noticed someone sitting near a large tree. It was a dog. The dog was resting quietly on the grass. His name was Bruno. Bruno was a strong brown dog with soft ears and kind eyes. Unlike Felix, Bruno was calm and humble. He didn't brag about anything. Felix smiled widely. "Aha," he said happily. "Someone new to admire my cleverness." Felix walked up to Bruno with his tail held high. "Good afternoon," Felix said proudly. Bruno looked up and wagged his tail politely. "Good afternoon," he replied. And just like that, a conversation began that would soon turn into a very important lesson.
Felix sat down beside Bruno. "So," Felix began proudly, "have you heard about me?" Bruno tilted his head. "Heard about you?" he asked. "Yes," Felix said excitedly. "I am Felix, the cleverest fox in the entire forest." Bruno blinked in surprise. "Oh, really?" he said politely. Felix puffed out his chest. "Of course, I know hundreds of tricks to escape from danger." Bruno's eyes widened. "Hundreds?" Felix nodded proudly. "Yes, if a hunter appears, I have a trick. If a tiger attacks, I have another trick. If wolves chase me, I have a completely different trick." Felix leaned closer and whispered dramatically, "In fact, I have at least 100 tricks for escaping danger." Bruno looked amazed. "That's incredible," he said honestly. Felix grinned even wider. "What about you?" he asked. Bruno scratched his ear thoughtfully. "Well, I only know one trick." Felix burst out laughing. "Only one?" Bruno nodded calmly. "Yes, just one." Felix shook his head in disbelief. "Oh dear, Bruno, that is not very impressive." Bruno smiled gently. "It works for me." Felix waved his paw dramatically. "No, no, you must learn more tricks. What if your one trick fails?" Bruno shrugged quietly. "I've never needed another one." Felix stood proudly. "Don't worry, my friend. I will teach you some of my clever tricks." Bruno wagged his tail happily. "Really?" "Yes," Felix said. "Soon you will be as clever as me." The two animals continued talking and laughing under the tall trees. But while they were enjoying their conversation, danger was quietly approaching.
The forest suddenly grew quiet. The birds stopped singing. The wind slowed. Then, crunch! A twig snapped somewhere in the distance. Bruno's ears instantly stood up. Felix froze. Then another sound echoed through the forest. Roar! The ground trembled slightly. Bruno's eyes widened. "Lions!" he whispered urgently.
Felix's heart skipped a beat. From between the tall bushes came heavy footsteps. The lions had arrived. A group of hungry lions had entered the forest looking for food. The smell of danger filled the air. Bruno reacted immediately. Without wasting a single second, he jumped towards a thick group of bushes. "Felix," Bruno whispered quickly, "this is my trick." Felix stared at him. "Your trick?" "Yes," Bruno said. "I hide quietly where no one can see me." And within seconds, Bruno disappeared beneath the thick bushes. Only his nose barely peeked through the leaves. Before hiding completely, Bruno whispered softly, "Which trick will you use, Felix?" Felix stood frozen. His mind began spinning with thoughts. Which trick? After all, he had 100 tricks. Surely one of them would work. Felix began thinking rapidly. "I could run towards the river," he thought. But then another idea appeared. "No, maybe I should climb a tree." Then another thought came. Or perhaps I should hide behind a rock. Felix paced back and forth nervously. So many tricks, which one should I choose? The lion's footsteps were getting closer. Felix's heart pounded loudly. I could pretend to be dead, he thought. But wait, maybe I should run in circles. No, maybe I should dig a hole. Felix's mind filled with endless plans. Each one sounded good, but then another plan sounded even better. I must choose the perfect trick, he muttered. Meanwhile, the lions were getting closer, closer, closer. Bruno watched quietly from the bushes. He stayed completely still. He didn't move. He didn't make a sound. Felix was still thinking. Which trick should I choose? Which one is the best? Suddenly, a large shadow fell over him. Felix slowly turned around. Behind him stood a massive lion. The lion's golden eyes stared straight at him. Felix froze. Now there was no time left. Felix panicked. I must choose a trick quickly, he cried. But his mind was still racing with choices. Run, hide, climb, dig, pretend. The lion growled deeply. Felix finally tried to run, but it was too late. The lion leaped forward with incredible speed. Within seconds, the clever fox was caught. Bruno watched silently from the bushes. His heart sank with sadness. Felix had so many tricks, but he had spent too much time choosing one, and that delay had cost him his life. The lions soon walked away, satisfied with their hunt. The forest slowly returned to silence. Bruno remained hidden until the lions were completely gone. Only then did he carefully step out of the bushes. He looked around the quiet forest. Poor Felix, Bruno whispered sadly. He was clever, but he could not decide. Bruno walked slowly through the forest. The wind rustled the leaves gently. The birds began singing again. But Bruno felt thoughtful. Felix had always believed that having many tricks made him smarter than everyone else. But when real danger came, all those choices confused him. Bruno only had one simple plan, but he trusted it, and he used it immediately. Bruno looked toward the bushes where he had hidden earlier. This one trick saved my life, he said quietly. Sometimes having too many choices can make us hesitate, and hesitation in times of danger can be very costly. Bruno continued walking through the peaceful forest. The sun slowly set behind the tall trees. Golden light filled the jungle. And from that day forward, the animals of the forest remembered an important lesson. Sometimes one reliable solution is better than 100 uncertain ones.